Oh, you waiting on me?
Yeah, I'm waiting on you.
You waiting on me? That sounds like a great intro right there.
Right. Hey, we're back.
Yeah, we are back. Yeah, apparently Joey was waiting on me. My apologies. All right. Well, we're back today. Yeah, we got a lot going on, you guys. Should we go ahead and make the announcement now, Joey?
I think it would probably, we're at that point, I think.
I think so too. All right. So to let you guys know, as of right now, September 7th, 2024, at the Colleton County Museum and Farmers Market, you all can come attend the Low Country Paracon presented by Dead South Paranormal.
How about that? See, that worked out good.
It did.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that, Jeremy.
I am too.
Jeremy sent me a text message a couple of weeks ago and said, I got an idea. And usually that's like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
But we talked about it, and we are in the process of getting everything kind of together.
Yep.
With that, we have some exciting guests coming along with us for the ride. We'll be announcing those shortly as we kind of finalize everything, and get the stamps and all,
and make sure they're all confirmed 100%.
But yeah, we're excited about that. It's going to be super, super interesting. It's kind of one of the first times, they have some stuff around and about in the Low Country. But in our area where we live, this is kind of the first time.
I agree. You might be able to find some stuff, definitely in Savannah. I believe, I may be wrong on this, there may or may not be one in Charleston. But I know, those who attend horror movie conventions and things of that nature, you'll be able to, it's something similar on the same in the same wheelhouse as it. But basically we're inviting out some paranormal investigators, those who have very interesting paranormal experiences, those who have dabbled in the paranormal for quite a while and have quite a backlog of it. So with that being said, we're going to hold a convention. We'll have food trucks available. We will these people that we're inviting out, our guest speakers, they'll be coming and putting on presentations. You'll have a chance to interact with them, ask, questions, maybe just mingle with people who love the paranormal like we do. And we'll be there as well because, of course, we're hosting the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
So come on out, say hi, grab a corn dog for the kiddies, and just have a good time because that's what we're there for, and interact, mingle, and get to know us, and we can get to know you.
With that said, Jeremy, I think we talked about it before we started recording today. We may try to do a live from there.
Yeah, a possibility. So
I got the internet. They got the bandwidth there. I've already checked that out.
Okay, cool.
So that's kind of the hard part. So they got the bandwidth there, so there's no problem with that. So we could actually do, if y'all want us to do a live, just shoot us a line, drop a comment, or shoot us an email, do a live, maybe talk, bring a couple guests on, directly on. So, let us know what you think about that. That would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I definitely think that it'd be a great idea to kind of help us get some exposure, some other paranormal investigators out there who have their own podcast, their own YouTube channel, to help them get some exposure. Definitely think, no, you're good. It's okay. That was not an anomaly. That was just Joey's finger.
That was my finger. The shade on the camera was okay. Was a little bit in the shot.
So. It's all right. But yeah, it's going to be a good time. So I think, from what I've heard and from what I've seen from some of these guests that we've got coming, I mean, you've got a wide range of people. It's diverse, and everybody's got a different story, which is really interesting. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. So come on out, help support us, help support these investigators as well, and hopefully we'll see you all there. And, of course, as we obtain more information, we'll pass it along.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get stuff on our social media as we get it along. So we do appreciate that. And we'll appreciate all the support and stuff as well. Speaking of different stories, Jeremy, you brought a story to tell today, if I understand correctly.
I did. I brought a few. They kind of all add up because they all kind of fall into the same category, which basically is hitchhiking ghosts. So South Carolina is kind of that we have our fair share of hitchhiking ghosts apparently, and so that's a time-honored tale, in my opinion. You know, you might have seen it on The Twilight Zone, or you may have seen it on Tales from the Crypt, or whatever you watched when you were a kid.
And there's like 100 horror movies that have that as the plot as well. Like
100%.
The Hitchhiker.
Yeah.
And they end up, being chased by the hitchhiker, and all of that. So,
yeah. So basically, I got this whole idea, about these hitchhiking ghosts that people have. There's many stories out there about people who have picked up someone. They've seen somebody, dark and stormy, rainy night. They pick this person up. They get to talking with them, and before long, a few miles down the road, they look in the back seat and they're gone. So that's kind of what we're diving into today, and we're going to start with one that has quickly become one of my favorite stories. And I apologize. Got to pull out my reference here. For those of you listening,
his reference is a folded page, by the way. I wanted to kind of let y'all know too, and I'm gonna swap back for just a second to the full screen. If you notice, we've changed the studio once again. We got some of our favorite horror villains and characters. I know Edgar Allan Poe is one of Jeremy's favorite writers, as well
100%.
as mine too. So we're constantly changing stuff over and over again, but getting back to the stories, there are, when we talk about these stories, there was, a story at one time that kind of came to life in South Carolina with the Pee Wee Gaskins serial killer incidences and things like that. But these stories they perforate the community, they perforate the culture down here over and over and over again. So, Jeremy, you can go ahead and take it away.
Yeah. So basically, this first story is based out of Savannah, Georgia, and this story actually comes from the book that I have. It's called "Ghost Sightings: The World's Spookiest Cases" by Brian Inez. So this happened back in the 1950s, and according to the book, the reporters on this were Debbie Creasy and Sharon McPartland. The reason I'm going through all this, I do not want to take credit as this story is my own, because it is not, but I am not going to plagiarize it, but I'm going to give you a brief breakdown of it. So basically, there was a few friends. They went out and they were heading out to Tybee Island from Savannah. Tybee Island is one of those barrier islands along the coast of coast of Georgia, and supposedly they were all heading out there for a dance out on the beach or whatnot. And so as they're driving, they come across this lady. She's in white, like a white dress, a white gown, and they see her and they were like, "Wow, it's a little too chilly out here for somebody to be out there in that." But so they stopped and they picked her up and they told her what they were heading out to do, and she seemed like she was on board to go along with them. So as she did, they got there, and one of the friends that was in the group, one of the guy friends, he kind of became really quickly smitten with her, and he danced with her a few times, and they had a good time, and this and that and the other. So on the way back after the party, after this dance, they're riding back toward Savannah, and this girl they picked up, they asked, "Hey, drop me off exactly where you picked me up." She refused to be taken home. So the guy, being as taken with her as he was, he said, "Can I get your address? Let me call on you. Let me get your address." So she gives him her address, and so they part ways. They drop her off back on the side of the road where they picked her up at. And then a few days go by. This guy, curiosity's peaking, so he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go track this girl down." And as he goes back, when he does, he goes to the address that she had given him, and it's like a what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry, no disrespect, but where the nuns hang out.
A convent.
Yeah, convent. Couldn't think of the word. I was thinking a habit, but that's the
what they wear.
Exactly.
That's the reason you keep me around to use the big 2-syllable words.
I appreciate it there. So he goes to the convent and he asks about this lady, and they're kind of looking kind of confused, and there's like, no, I'm sorry, she's gone. She died in a car wreck. And so like this wasn't the case of somebody being picked up and disappearing a few miles down the road. This was the case of that this guy basically took this ghost out on a date for the night, brought her back, and then goes to find out, like, hey, I'm in love with a dead girl.
Well, that's weird. I think I probably dated her too. But no, that's crazy, because that's not the first time I've heard of something similar where like it was a complete almost immersing thing.
Yeah.
And where, full manifestation, there was no weird things, not initially anything weird about it.
Right.
And that's crazy though, that this guy was like, what? Dead person? What?
Yeah. But just looking back at the book, the girl's name was Rose White. So, which I don't know. That's supposedly, according to the story, is her name was Rose White.
Rose White. Why is that?
You're thinking Rose Red.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, apparently she was there. She was a member of the convent. And so I don't know. It's just kind of weird, because it goes eventually at the end of the story, like, this guy's like, no, there's no way she's dead. We just, it was just a few nights ago that we danced down at the dance hall on Tybee Island. And so one of the sisters there, she actually takes them out there beside the road to a local cemetery and actually shows them the grave of where this girl had passed away, and she was involved in a vehicle accident, and, just very weird.
Wow. That's super strange. We think about it a lot of times that the dead, and this is going to get into kind of what I'm going to talk about a little bit when we talk about some Gullah Geechee culture and some of their beliefs, where one of the beliefs is that you have a soul and a spirit.
Yes.
And your soul goes to heaven, but then your spirit stays here on earth to guide your your family and stuff like that, like an ancestor and things. But, you almost think that's got to be kind of what that is at that point, maybe. I wouldn't think of, generally you think of nuns and you think of religious people in that aspect, is that they're not generally being held here for illicit or troublesome reasons and things like that. Sure, she died in a car wreck, which kind of brings me like, what's a nun doing in a car? But I guess they got to get around, So,
well, true.
But that was a traumatic death, and it was tragic and violent. But it kind of goes to that fate thing as well. Everybody's got a time.
Yeah.
And obviously it was her time. So you don't really see like it's something messing with that cause a disturbance in the spirit and things. So
right.
You wonder sometimes the whole spirit and soul thing, how really true that kind of stuff is sometimes. Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff that you'll get into these stories that kind of make you question some things that, maybe you never thought about before,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's done it to me several times. But, all right. But anyway, get back on track here. The next story that we have comes from Walhalla.
That's up there. That's in the dark corner. So we call that the dark corner because there's so many stories that come from that corner.
100%.
And there was a lot of, it was kind of the last bastion of civil rights holdouts in that area and things as well. So it's got like that name, and and Clemson's up there. So anything to do with Clemson is dark and dirty anyway. So, but Walhalla up there. That's Pickens County, I think, or somewhere along in there, isn't it? Yeah.
Oconee County.
Oconee, Pickens, they're all the same.
Yeah, they're all. Yep, they're all the same. All right. So for decades, motorists in South Carolina have recounted encounters with a specter seeking a lift along a rural route nestled in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Highway 107 meanders through Walhalla, situated in Oconee County, a quaint town in the northwest corner of the state. So apparently locals have said they have dubbed this apparition that is seen along the side of the roads as the Walhalla hitchhiker. So they describe this apparition as a man in a black raincoat and muddy boots with a demeanor that is said to be quiet, expressionless, and pallid. So unlike Rose White, this guy's not the dancer, apparently.
Obviously, he looks like a ghost. Is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. So according to legend, many people actually believe that this is the ghost or spirit of Larry Stevens, a pilot who perished in the 1950s when his aircraft crashed in the vicinity after encountering a rainstorm shortly after departing from Greenville. So reports from that time indicate that the wreckage from Stevens' plane was discovered strewn along South Carolina 107, spanning from Moody Spring to a nearby scenic overlook. Accounts from drivers who claim to have picked up the hitchhiker at various points along the route, with the enigmatic passenger requesting to be dropped off at either end point, depending on the direction of travel. So if he's traveling one way, he'll be asked to drop off at Moody Spring, and if he's traveling the other way, it looks like he wants to be dropped off at a scenic overlook, which is interesting. Yet upon reaching the destination, of course, the hitchhiker mysteriously vanishes into thin air. But he does leave a peculiar mark of his presence behind. So he often leaves behind a damp spot in the vehicle.
That's so weird. I don't even know what to really think about that.
I have a lot of thoughts.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts too, but none of them probably are appropriate.
What is appropriate on this show anyway?
I don't, dude. I have no idea sometimes.
But yeah, I mean, I find it interesting that depending on where you pick him up at, depends on where he wants to get dropped off. And of course, this is a conversation me and you have had before about why is this ghost there?
Yeah.
So my question is, and this is a question that's been posed to us several times, is what is the spirit? What is the ghost attached to? And it seems like these ghosts are attached to a segment of the road, almost.
Yeah, it goes back to Hank Williams's ghost.
Yeah.
You know, you think about was it Mobile to Nashville? I think is the route he takes, and
even David Allicoe wrote a song
about it,
The Ride,
and which is actually a really great song. To be honest. And I'm not necessarily the biggest David Allicoe fan, but that song is really good. But you know, they've had those incidences happen along that road between Mobile and Nashville as well. We hear, you know, we go back to some of our previous episodes when we talked about the different lights, the Jacksonboro light, the Ladies Island light, the Somerville light. It's been developed now and it's a development. And, you know, these spirits seem to be attached to a segment of highway or a parcel of land or something like that. I think that's probably what we see there. And that is, it's so unusual because you don't know necessarily why. You go to the Pawleys Island.
the gray man.
The gray man at Pawleys Island walking along the coast, you know. All of these seem to be residual hauntings in a way, but like the one out of Savannah really seemed to be more of it had to be an intelligent haunting.
Yeah, you would think so.
And so that's really, really strange.
It is. So apparently he ectoplasmed all over the back seat back there, so.
Maybe he had to pee. Who knows?
Who knows? Do ghosts have to pee?
I don't. If you know that ghosts have to pee, shoot us a line.
Yeah,
drop something in the comments.
Answer that question below. So finally, we get to the Gervais Street Bridge in Columbia.
I know about this one a little bit.
So this one, this bridge, the Gervais Street Bridge, connects Columbia, South Carolina, to West Columbia over the Congaree River. So despite its construction in 1928 and subsequent reconstructions, this ghost isn't menacing. Rather, appears to be a local woman. I can't speak. She appears to be a local woman simply trying to return home. So while the river's strong currents and sudden dips have claimed lives, those individuals haven't left behind spirits, possibly because of the support from loved ones. Basically, that those people remembered them, proper burial, so on and so forth. But this woman here in particular, she died on the bridge in the 1940s under non-suspicious circumstances is what it says. So another well-known tale involves a hitchhiking young woman believed to be seeking a ride to Pickens Street in Columbia, often appearing during rainy or foggy nights. Some witnesses claim she engages in conversation before vanishing before their eyes, which, if they're engaging in conversation, even though it is residual, it has to be intellectual as well. If she's showing up to the same place at the same time over and over again, that tells me her spirit is attached to something there, the bridge, the land, the road, whatever. But also on the same hand, if she's actually engaging in conversation with different people as they pick her up, that tells me that's an intellectual spirit. So
100%. And it is funny that right there at that bridge is also something else that holds a lot of history.
What's that?
South Carolina Museum.
Oh, that's true. Are you going to talk about Bubba?
No. I know a bunch of people that work in that building.
Really?
So the South Carolina Museum, of course, everybody knows the museum's on the front.
Mm-hmm.
There is parts of that building kind of up and back. And in the back of that building holds some state agencies.
Really?
Yeah, one of the agencies is DHEC, Department of Health and Environmental Control, has several offices in there, and their division of EMS, which that's where I work for a living, is pre-hospital medicine. So I have to frequent that building, and it is it's creepy at best. It's a tremendously old building.
Yeah.
But there are so many artifacts in that building that have been brought in there. It's the museum, it's the South Carolina Museum. So there are so many artifacts and things in there that are undoubtedly there's attachments to it. And when you think about it, you have the Gervais Street Bridge right there. It's 150 yards away.
Right.
The Congaree River right there. There's a lot of potentially ghostly things right in that central area of near downtown, because the Gervais Street Bridge is not far from downtown Columbia.
That's right.
So obviously there's some definite potential, and to see those things. And I've actually know one of the workers that saw the Gervais Street ghost before.
Really?
Yeah.
Now we're talking about the one I'm actually speaking about now. Yeah. The girl,
the young
hitchhiking.
Girl,
yes.
the hitchhiking girl.
Interesting. I got a story later on. I'll bring it up.
A good friend of mine. He worked up there for a long, long time, and he would often come to work at like be at work at like 5 o'clock in the morning. You know how some folks can do that, and they can get up super early, and they to get work done before the rest of the crowd gets there.
Yeah. And
he was one of the bosses too. So he was driving in one morning and saw what he appeared to me. It was strange that he even mentioned it to me, because he didn't know this was several years ago, and he didn't know I was like really interested in paranormal and things like that. But when he mentioned it, he said, I was driving to work the other morning and I saw this young girl on the side of the road. It looked like a hitchhiker. But as I got closer to her, it didn't look real.
Like he was seeing something that necessarily wasn't there.
He felt like it wasn't right.
something was wrong with it. Something was off.
Yeah, it wasn't like your typical like hobo hitchhiker type thing, and it spooked him.
Yeah.
He was like, he hauled on tail and got in the office. And I was like, well, that probably didn't help either, if you're in that building. But yeah, so he kind of recognized that there was, and this is a woefully intelligent man, and he kind of recognized something wasn't all kosher with it. But yeah, so I know somebody that has actually had an experience with that. So that's so crazy that you mention it.
Interesting. But of course, she gets in the vehicle with people. There doesn't ever seem to be any sort of any evidence of harm or ill intent from her. She may not. Some speculate she may not even know that she's passed away. It just seems like her biggest mission is that she is trying to return to Columbia by heading back to Pickens Street.
Yep.
So as people pick her up, she fades away, and some people think she just, like, as they cross the bridge with her, like, she disappears.
Yep.
So that's an interesting story because now this is just weird in general, but I was coming through. I used to work in Columbia many moons ago, but as I was coming through Swansea one night, and where the train trestle is.
Yep.
Highway 3 veers off to the right. And so as I'm coming, this is probably about, 11 o'clock at night. It's getting fairly late. Not a whole lot of cars out on the road at this time. And so I'm veering off to head that way. And as I'm going, I see this lady come running from the left to the right side of the road. And as she does, like, she's waving her hands like something is wrong. And I'm like, initially I'm thinking, I need to stop.
Somebody's in trouble, yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't see a vehicle. I didn't see anybody laying in the road, nothing. And then I was like, you know what? And around that time, that was right around the time that whole, whether it be myth, urban legend, or not, that whole situation about people were saying that if you see somebody and they're begging for help and you don't see anyone, that usually somebody else is hiding, whether it be down the road or off in the bushes. Somebody else is nearby waiting to jump you. So I was just like, oh hell no, and I just floored it, went around them, and God forbid me if the lady needed help, but I was just like, no, I'm not dealing with this tonight.
No, I don't blame you, because a lot of that still happens.
Oh, 100%. So another story I'd like to tell real quick was I had a guy I worked with in Columbia, and he lived out toward Sumter. I want to say the road is what's that road that runs to Sumter? 378?
378, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he lived down 378, closer toward Sumter probably than he did Columbia. But anyway, he was telling me one day that he said he was going home, because me and him were talking this type of talk, ghosts and paranormal stuff like that. And he was telling me that to get to his house, you have to travel down this long dirt road. And as he was traveling, because he's got some family that lives down that way as well. So as he's traveling, he says this is early in the morning now, he sees something or someone in the middle of this dirt road. And he says, who in the hell is out here this late? What is going on? And he said, whatever it was looked like it was cloaked, like it was standing out there in the middle of the road, and he was just like, it wasn't moving. And he said it scared him terribly. And he said as he was trying to, because he stopped, looked at it, and like, do I need to go past this thing? What is going on? Because he probably had the same thoughts that I did with the lady running toward me with her hands waving up in the air, was that, what is happening? Has someone set a trap for me? And so he slowly starts to go around this thing, and as he does, he says he's looking ever so intently, trying to see the face, to see if he could recognize who this person is. And he said there was nothing but darkness inside this hood. And he was just like, oh, hell no. He hit the gas. He went on around it. He got home, and he said, but what was weird was after he passed it, he looked in the side view mirror of his car, and in the brake lights, he could see this thing running down the road after him. Freaked him so bad he got to his house. He went inside. He locked the door. He shut off all the lights, and he stayed there. He called his cousin who lived not too far from him and said, look, man, somebody's out here on these roads tonight. be careful. But that, in my head, reminds me a lot of those YouTube videos that you come across, and it's downright spooky, it's terrifying, and like that is one of my biggest fears, is either to break down and into an area that I have no idea or where I'm at, and then to see something like that. That's just terrifying.
I think you call that a nope cloak.
Oh, hell.
Yeah. Somebody might catch them lead. I hope it's nobody out there playing jokes, because nowadays you liable to somebody catch them lead, somebody catch a charge, that's kind of thing.
There's no room for error at this point.
No. But that is, pardon me. But it's funny you mentioned that now. So Brent Spearman was out here last week, and we were doing some recording, and we had to do like a little special, and I'm not going to break anything but we did a little special.
Okay.
And that special was about 200 proof. But anyway, Brent got here about 6:30. We did probably 2.5 hours worth of recording after that. So it was about 9 o'clock, probably 9:30 when he left.
Yeah.
And he was stone cold sober.
Yeah.
We did our little thing, and then we talked for 2 hours, type thing. And he got down to the end of the road down here and down towards town. Turned the corner going into town.
Yeah.
And he said he can't explain what it was. It was as big as a black bear, but looked like a dog.
Really?
Yeah.
Right here at the end of the road?
Right here at the end of the road, that's a mile and a half. It's a mile and a half to the end of the road. Because I used to, surprisingly enough, folks, I actually used to run that when I was in shape. Yeah. And I was like, well, I know there's some folks got some dogs down at the end of the road. But
Black Panthers?
I've never, there's a couple houses there's got pit bulls.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that's probably where mine came from. But the, pretty good sized pit bulls, like there's 4 or 5 of them down at the end of the road, and they're pretty friendly,
Yeah.
But I wouldn't, I've never seen a black one there. They're all tans and those colors, all the brown color.
Brindle.
Brindle, Staffordshire looking dogs. I've never seen a black one there. And I was like, well, maybe it's one of them, a dog's in heat or something like that, and there's an old lab running around out there or something like that. But nobody's really got black labs around here. And it was just strange. But he said it was like near the size of a. He said I didn't know whether it was. He said it was bigger than a coyote, which was kind of my first thought because I do have those.
Yeah.
And he said it was way bigger than a coyote, but he said it looked like a dog or a coyote, but it was big, like big, and black.
That's crazy.
And it scared the shit out of him.
I imagine so.
He almost turned around and came back in. I was like, well, I wasn't going down there and messing with it.
No.
I got something. I'm sure that if it's alive, I can unalive it.
If it can be hurt.
Yeah, but I'm more worried about if it can be hurt. At that point. So I think it's probably like just a big coyote or something like that.
Could be.
And he saw it and it scared him, and it's just one of those things that was it's like the tails when you're fishing. It's that much bigger. I don't know though, but it was enough for him to call me and was like nervous and upset about it. And I was like, because when he called me, I was like, oh, he broke down, or hit a deer or something like that. No. He saw a big dog man bear pig down at the end of the road.
Man bear
pig. But that stuff's all the time out there. And that's what people don't realize is that, in the communities, especially in the rural communities, riding these roads late, and I've rode these roads late at night.
It can be scary.
It can be real scary. I remember the first time on the other side of that, though, I remember the first beaver I ever saw cross a road, and nobody believed us. Now
How old are you doing?
I'm 47. I'll be 47 in this month.
I was just wondering, I'm like, damn, how long is,
Beavers hadn't been around in this area until probably 25 years ago.
Damn, I didn't realize that. But now they're a hell of a lot more prevalent.
Yeah, they're everywhere. I remember
those and armadillos.
Yeah, so. I remember as a kid, you had to go to Florida to find an armadillo.
Yes,
you see them on the road.
Yes, I remember that as well.
Going down to Disney as a kid and stuff like that. But those things move up and things like that, and then the beavers kind of moved in. And I remember seeing the one for the first time. My buddy tried to actually catch it. Yeah, thank God he didn't get beaver bit, because I think you turn into like a werebeaver when they bite you. But Zombeaver. But I can tell you exactly where it was. It's right by Ron Carter's house out here. I can tell you in a little branch right there exactly where it was. But we didn't have them back then. Now they're in every creek, and I'm not joking. I go to work one morning, pull out my driveway, my second driveway, and look out across the road, and I actually thought it was a chocolate lab, somebody's chocolate lab, and it was a damn beaver like on the edge of the cornfield out here. And I'm like, where are you going, Mr. Beaver?
For real.
And he was big. So, when you see stuff like that, and you, especially when it's something new, this I guess migrating into the area, it's confusing. I remember before coyotes.
Yeah.
I remember the first people killing the first coyotes kind of thing. And I remember, funny enough, my granddaddy telling me when there was no deer in this area. Like if somebody saw a deer track on a dirt road, everybody went and looked at that deer track from the town because that was like amazing. There are things out there that we're not confirmed yet.
Yeah.
And I think there's things out there that are not necessarily supernatural, but are not discovered to be in certain areas. And I think some of those things are. And I wonder sometimes, like the cloaked man thing, you generally think about that's somebody playing a
prank, yeah.
Which is a really dangerous prank.
Oh, 100%, especially nowadays.
Yeah, and because somebody could get really hurt, so don't go out there and do pranks and stuff like that.
Don't do that.
Is it something that you interfered with, such as a ritual? We know we have occult ritualists.
Yeah,
that's the best word I can use for them in certain areas, and you kind of show up at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Or is it truly something paranormal?
Yeah.
And so you kind of, there's, it's kind of broken into thirds there, what it really is, until you get out there and punch it in the mouth, I guess, sometimes. And sometimes that's just what I want to do is I want to see if it'll bleed.
Yeah.
I guess I won't know what to do if it doesn't, I guess. But
yeah, we ain't thought that far ahead.
Yeah. I don't usually think that far ahead with this stuff. But one of the things that I was reading about, and I think it's really, really interesting in the Low Country, and we've talked about voodoo, hoodoo, Santeria, and stuff like that before, but I was just talking this week to a buddy of mine that I work with, and he was telling me experiences he had with an entity that we call affectionately in the Low Country of South Carolina called the Boo Hag.
Really? This guy had an interaction with, what he believes is an interaction with it. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. What is, when you think about what is a Boo Hag, there's a lot of kind of speculation about it, but basically the Boo Hag is a kind of a combination between a sleep paralysis demon and a vampire.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can really even make those differentiations there. But it comes from the Gullah Geechee culture, and they believe that both, we talked about earlier, that the body has both a spirit and a soul.
Correct.
When you die, your soul ascends to heaven or hell, or descends to hell, depending on the life you live, and your spirit stays behind to help guide your descendants. As part of ancestor worship that makes up hoodoo,
right,
which is common here in the Low Country. And if you stay and you are even in life, your spirit mutates into a Boo Hag.
That's right.
That's the general story.
Yep.
That's the story.
100% in agreement.
Yeah. And the Boo Hag is actually a night creature. Actually, the Boo Hag can disguise itself as normal during the day.
That's right.
But it's a night creature, and at night it will generally show itself as like a skinless monster with red muscles and things like that. blue veins, the eyes reflect light like a cat type thing. And it has like the flowing white hair, and they seem to think, you know, when you think about the origins of these stories and things like that, that, you know, when we die, even if we are embalmed and all of that, our hair will continue to grow for a while, and you get the long flowing hair, the long fingernails, things like that. And that was kind of one of those in medieval times, early Christianity. That's kind of where the story of the vampire came from, in a way, because they dig up a corpse and it looked like they were still living because their hair had grown and their fingernails had grown, but a lot of the older generations thought they were vampires coming from the dead to feed.
Right.
The thing about it is that they use witchcraft and evil magic to cause havoc on innocent people, and they'll actually paralyze you in your sleep. And that's where the boo hag comes from. And there's kind of a famous painting out there of a demon that sits on your chest.
Oh, yeah. I think I know what you're talking about.
If you Google boo hag, it's like the first image that pops up in the middle of the night. And what it does is that it is feeding on your life force. So what they seem to think is that the boo hag comes to visit, and you can actually wake up and see it and physically feel it, but you can't move. But then when you wake up again in the morning, you're completely like, it's like you never went to sleep and you're tired and you have no energy and things like that. And that's what he was explaining to me, is that he would wake up and not necessarily see anything, but would have sleep paralysis.
Get that man a CPAP machine.
Yeah. That's what I told him. If he wasn't in the shape he was in, I'd say yes.
Yeah.
But this dude here is jacked. So
interesting.
yeah. But the boo hag, it does look human during the day.
Right.
And
why is that, Joey?
Because it will cloak itself in its victim's skin.
That is 100% correct.
So it's kind of like a skinwalker.
Yeah, almost, yeah.
So the unlucky victim's skin, obviously. And then at night it escapes the skin to go looking for fresh skin. The Gullah culture says, hey, you know, one of their things is don't let the hag ride you.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky, you might wake up extremely exhausted. Signs of the visit of the boo hag is someone who slept all night but got no rest. An unfortunate account we ended you waking up with the creature still riding you.
Oh, God, that'd be terrible.
And if you try to escape while it's feeding, it will steal your skin for its next disguise.
100%.
So, a couple of things. If you ever visit anybody from the South, you may notice some things in their house. So there's some things that can keep the boo hag away.
Yeah.
So place a broom near the door of your room.
Yep.
That's the big one. If you ever go into some houses, they will place a door at the entrance to your room or at the entrance to the house.
That's right.
Because for some reason, the boo hag has to stop and count all the bristles.
I don't know why that is.
I don't know either.
They said they're very meticulous creatures, and they have to, like, once they see it, it's like, ooh, I got to count how many bristles it is.
Hairbrushes and colanders will do the same effect as well.
Strainers, yep.
And it'd be forced to count the holes in the strainer and stuff like that. And what it is to distract the hag long enough till the sun comes up and unable to run to its skin suit, and it dies in sunlight.
Yep.
So there are a lot of parallels as well in European folklore with vampires and fairies who are also can be stopped by piles of rye and salt in their path because they have to count it.
Yeah.
All the grains. So sprinkling salt over the boo hag as it sits on you makes the hag unable to return to the skin, and it also dies in the morning.
So if you can't move when you wake up, how the hell are you supposed to grab the salt?
I guess Aunt Susie's got to run in there and throw some salt on them. I don't know.
Lord have mercy.
This is the trickiest of one of them to attempt, obviously. However, it's the best that if you wake up, don't move, and you might actually survive the visit.
That's terrifying.
One of the number one way that most people combat it is go to the hardware store, go to the paint section,
Yep.
and get Haint Blue paint.
Haint blue.
and they paint. It's an indigo blue paint. So you have to remember that back in the day, in the low country of South Carolina, many of the plantations not only planted rice, but they planted indigo as dye for fabrics. And that unique hue of indigo blue paint, called haint blue is what we call it now, will ward off your boo hags. And because haint means basically spirit, and usually malevolent spirits in the Gullah culture. So that's and I actually found where the haint blue paint came from.
Where's that?
So it was a Southern lady named Eliza Lucas in the 1730s.
Okay.
Planted the first indigo plants on her father's tree plantation in Charleston. And while the indigo was growing in both Jamestown and Virginia and New Amsterdam, which is New York City now at the time, it did not grow well in those areas, and that's where it became one of the cash crops of South Carolina.
Interesting.
So the farmers needed experienced workers to work on that, and the need for the indigo cultivators spurned the actual kidnapping and enslavement of a lot of people from West Africa, and which is part of the slave trade. And she was one of the first people to actually take whitewash, old-timey white paint, and use some of the dye and paint it blue to paint their houses with.
Interesting.
So,
and see, nowadays, Sherwin-Williams don't actually make a paint. There's no haint blue.
Nope.
Yeah, you're not going to find that in the color palette there.
Correct.
But it usually falls. It looks like it's not like, I don't know. I'd say it's almost like light blue with a hint of green and maybe a little bit of seafoam mixed in with it.
It's almost egg blue, robin's egg blue.
Yeah.
Robin's egg blue paint color. Like if you were to find it, that is the closest color to the original indigo haint blue.
I think that. And now I know, because it depends on where you're at and depends on where you're looking at it, because it can change in the light. So, like our house, like our door at our house, it's pretty close to it, but it leans more to the side of green than blue does. But yes, a lot of people paint the ceilings of their porch that way, or paint the wood on, like the floor on the porch. Some people paint the door frame. I don't know how much protection you need.
Yeah.
So.
No, and the idea behind it is that it actually confuses the spirits, and they think that they have come upon a body of water.
That's correct.
And they can't cross bodies of water.
That's right.
So,
which is interesting, going back to the hitchhiking ghost down in Columbia, who actually is on a bridge. And so I don't know, she can't leave that body of water for whatever reason, because every time she does, she disappears.
Yeah.
Which is ironic in itself.
Yeah, and you hear about there's ghosts on the lakes and ghost ships and stuff like
definitely.
that. So, but I thought that was really interesting
100%.
About the boo hag, and the fact is that I'm not sure that a lot of people don't experience that. Both maybe a physiological condition, sleep apnea.
Yeah.
A psychological condition, or even a paranormal condition at times. So if you're having these sleep issues, put a broom beside your door, I guess.
Real.
You know what I mean? Like, see if that helps.
But one thing I did read about the boo hag that I've read before is that creaks, cracks, crevices, keyholes, they love, like, you think you're safe because I locked all my doors, but they actually can go through the cracks in the walls, even through the keyholes. So I found that very interesting. And so it does seem to be a little bit of tend to be on that side of a malevolent entity.
It wants to come get you.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And one thing I had heard about, one story I heard, said that this guy in the neighborhood way back when, he was an eligible young bachelor. He was looking to settle down, and so he started dating this beautiful, beautiful woman down the road. And everybody in the neighborhood told him, do not mess with that woman. And, of course, against everybody's advice,
It's what dudes do.
Yeah, he went after her anyway. And So, they courted for a while, and then eventually they moved in together and they married or whatnot. And so then one day shortly after the honeymoon, he woke up in the middle of the night and realized that his bride was no longer in the bed with him. And he's like, where's she at? And he didn't think much of it. He's just like, okay, maybe she had to go. Maybe she went downstairs, grabbed a glass of water. Maybe she's, maybe she couldn't sleep, whatever the case is. So eventually he woke back up next morning. She was back in bed. Well, couple nights later, same thing happened. So he got up, he walked around, he looked around for his wife. He couldn't find her anywhere. And then he said, okay, that's odd. So when he woke up the next morning, she was back in bed, but she didn't make any mention about her leaving. And so he kind of got to, what's going on here? Thinking maybe his new bride's cheating on him. He waited and pretended to fall asleep. And when she left, he followed. And what he saw from behind the closed door, he actually saw her shed her skin and put it in a secret place. And of course, like you described, the skinless boo hag running around. He saw her running around.
Wow.
And from there, I think he got the help of an old conjure lady at that time, and she told him, said, first thing you got to do is you got to find where the skin is at. Once you find the skin, fill it full of salt. And so when his wife come back home trying to get into her suit before daylight,
she couldn't.
She was struggling to get in there, and she eventually got back in there, but he had built up a cauldron of boiling black tar and poured it over her and killed her that way. And I was like, well, I don't think you needed the salt at that point.
No, I don't think so either. That was just seasoning.
But one thing I gotta share with this. Now, this isn't necessarily paranormal, but I think it was very interesting. And I've never heard this at all. So I went to the local library and I got this book. It's called Tales of Edisto. And I eyeballed it on the shelf a time or two, and it always caught my eye. Well, finally, I broke down and I got it. So I was reading in there, and so way back when, during slave days, unfortunately, they would take a dollop of butter and a little bit of sugar, and they would put it together, and they'd mix it together, and it'd form like a little ball or whatever with it, just a little morsel. And they would take fresh linen, and they would wrap it up in that linen and kind of tie it together. And it was used to keep babies quiet. And like if slaves were out in the field or whatever, and they needed a little bite to eat to kind of keep them going, they would use those as well. You know what those are called? Sugar tits. 100%. I said, you've got to be kidding me. I thought that was just a name of affection. Yeah. But no, this is 100%. Sugar tits is what they called them.
Yeah.
And I said, that just kind of blew my mind. But I find it very interesting. That was, I didn't even know that was a thing. A little bit of butter, a little bit of sugar, and they wrapped them in the linen, and they would take them around with them in case the baby started squalling or whatever, and they would feed it to the baby. It helped suppress their appetite and kept the baby quiet. So I just thought that was a little interesting fact. So there you go.
Wow, that is kind of I never knew that. I never knew they did that.
Yeah,
I knew about the hush puppy thing.
Oh yeah, definitely heard about the hush puppy thing.
And but I never had heard about that.
Yeah, so. Interesting stuff.
So hey y'all, if we haven't told you already, go visit our social media.
Yep.
So Dead South Paranormal, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram as Dead South Paranormal. On YouTube, it's Dead South Paranormal SC, or you can email us at deadsouthpodcast@gmail.com. And again, we'll be posting any updates for the upcoming September con at this
paranormal convention.
Convention. We will also we constantly put little snippets and things. Well, Jeremy does a lot.
I try to anyway, but my computer is currently in the shop.
And so we're trying to keep you up to date. Remember that our podcasts are live every Monday morning.
100%.
And so videos and podcasts will be live every Monday usually. podcast every Monday, and then if we're doing a paranormal investigation, which we have a couple now, they're in the process of editing. So
Yeah.
and it's going along. So that's a way of saying it's going along.
Yeah, so usually first Monday of every month, you'll find a new investigation over on our YouTube channel. And of course, every Monday you'll have a new episode of the podcast.
Yep. So, all right, folks. Well, we're going to turn it over to y'all today. We thank you for joining us. We want to tell you we love you from Edgar Allan Poe and Lon Chaney and all those guys back there behind us.
Yep.
Be sure to check us out on our social media. Be sure to, when you get there, like and follow us. Keep up. Set those notifications on.
Yeah, put those little bells on YouTube. That way it'll let you know anytime we post anything on YouTube.
Yep. And we'll keep y'all up to date with everything. Y'all have a good evening. We love you.
Yep. Stay spooky, sugar tits.